Hi everyone, here's what's bothering me today. There is a lot of stuff that I didn't make a video about this week that's definitely bothering me. So here we are once again for the Sunday sum up. So the first one is from this person on Twitter who said that KHive is the most effective grassroots movement in modern political history. You can cry and kick and scream all you want, but you'll never take away what we accomplished. And this is only the beginning. So that's hilarious. But then apparently, I guess this person thought that a lot of the responses to this weren't hilarious. So they said, "Oh, you sad, bitter bitches. By all means, enjoy counting your delegates. Enjoy it hard. Jack off to that memory for the next 4 years, because that's all you got. We're busy savoring the moment and planning 2024. Okay, so, like, this is hilarious, right? But here's why it's bothering me. For one, they apparently genuinely think that this is the most effective grassroots movement, never mind what Bernie and AOC have been able to spur among so many young and disaffected people and voters across America. KHive is not a grassroots movement, like what? But what is also troubling and bothersome, if you will, is how toxic this woman is, and just basically trying to rub the loss of Bernie into other supporters' faces, and they feel very confident in what's going to happen in 2024 based on how, things are currently going for the Biden administration and for America. I don't think the odds look very great for the Democrats in 2022 or 2024, barring a miracle. And yet this woman, and no doubt many others like her, feel convinced of their success and their victory. That's a problem. And that's what's bothering me today. Next up, and this one absolutely infuriated me when I first saw it. A teenager was fined for reporting her stalker to police 5 times before he murdered her. Remind me again, like what's the thing that cops are supposed to do, but they never actually do that? What's it? Oh, to serve and protect. Right, to serve and protect. But clearly they don't do that. And instead will find a scared teenager who's rightfully afraid of her stalker. They will fine her because they don't want to actually address the problem and do their jobs. It is utterly disgusting and shameful. And unfortunately, this poor woman has lost her life in Brighton. And it could have been avoided. Like, this could have been avoided, but the cops didn't do their job. So why are we funding them? Why do people continue to support them when they won't even do the job we're paying increasing amounts of money to have them supposedly do? This is ridiculous. But unfortunately, there's even more ridiculous stories to follow. So there's 2 news stories out of Ottawa, the capital of Canada. So apparently, a while ago, on Friday, March 19th, an Ottawa couple bid $400,000 over the asking price of a home, and they lost. And the home is probably only worth like that amount of money anyway, but because the housing market is so hot right now, this is the kind of like bidding that people need to do, and they're still losing. Like this single family home in the Ottawa community of Riverside South sold for $1.25 million. This is a suburban, like a satellite suburban community of Ottawa. It is far, like in the countryside, and yet it's going for $1.25 million. It's not some like quaint old, farm estate. It's a home built not that many years ago, selling for $1.25 million, and people bidding $400,000 over the asking price couldn't secure a home. What even is real life? And we're getting to that. But then there's another really frustrating story from Ottawa that I learned of. Company behind Herongate development rejects proposal to further help evictees. So the background behind this, there's an area in Ottawa called the Herongate neighborhood, and there's a lot of low income and community housing in this area. And apparently the property owners, they sold their land to some company, and then that company is now trying to revitalize the area, and they're showing a whole bunch of new like mid-rise and high-rise condo towers. But what's happened is that they have evicted a lot of these people. Apparently there was a mass eviction at one point like a year ago of 500 people all at once. A organization called Acorn, they asked the company as part of their proposal to make sure that 35% of new units in these developments will be affordable, so that these people who were kicked out can move back into their communities, go back to their schools, etc. The company isn't budging. So this would be a really great time to tell people about all the great work that Acorn does there in Ottawa and several other municipalities across this province. They do really good work at ensuring that tenants know their rights, and helping support people and low-income housing, and just trying to address the housing crisis in general. So if you're Canadian, please consider giving them your support. And if you're in Ottawa, make some noise about this, because this is ridiculous and unacceptable for both of these stories. And yet, there's still a third story involving housing from this week that was bothering me, and I just have to get it off my chest, because it's ridiculous. So, there was, of course, the NFT digital house that's like some kind of modern house built on Mars that sold for $500,000. And some people, like in this article that I'm linking, they said it's the world's first digital house. Then what the hell have people been doing in Minecraft for all these years? Those are digital houses that people actually get to play around in and decorate how they want. Like, what? And here's the thing, right? Like, I sort of get the idea of NFTs. Like, look, it's like art, but at the same time, you can still just get copies. It's pretty silly, but on some level, I do understand the idea of, oh, it's the unique version instead of a copy of it. I sort of get it. However, people are spending $500,000 on fake homes, fake digital drawings of homes on Mars that lots of other people would be happy to craft and draw up for a small commission fee, and you'd be helping an artist survive. And they're spending this much money on digital stuff when actual people in real life are going homeless. This is the unholy trifecta of housing-related stories that were truly bothering me today. And there's still more stories to get through. There's still more stories, such as Public Health Agency of Canada being unprepared for the pandemic and underestimating the danger, according to Canada's Auditor General. Your job as the Public Health Agency is to be prepared, and they weren't. They had 2 decades of warnings, planning, and government spending, and yet they weren't ready for the global pandemic and did not appreciate the threat it posed in its early stages. Utterly shameful and embarrassing. Heads need to proverbially roll at this agency and get it stocked with people who actually take threats seriously. This is unacceptable. Canadians are dead and the economy is in tatters, in part because the public agency did not prepare and treat this as the threat it so clearly was. And then finally, on this absolutely infuriating week, well, there's the other one about the whole Georgia thing, but we're not covering that yesterday because I've covered it a bit already, especially 3 weeks ago when I said, hey, maybe we should pay attention to this now instead of when after it got passed. But I digress. Another story that I want to talk about that seems to have slipped under the radar is this story from the Kansas City Star. Missouri Republicans block funds for voter-approved Medicaid expansion. Voters expressing themselves democratically and fairly said that they wanted Medicaid expansion for all people of Missouri. And the Republicans since they can't say, well, we, according to the laws, we can't, not do that. But what they are doing is they're blocking funds. They're making it so that it is unfundable. What's that about democracy and helping the little guy and respecting the choice of the voters, including many of whom would probably vote Republican? But apparently no. Republican lawmakers blocked Medicaid expansion funding from reaching the Missouri House floor on Thursday, posing a setback for the voter-approved plan to increase eligibility for the state healthcare program. It would have allowed over 230,000 low-income Missourians to be covered, and it won with a 53% majority on the ballot, and they're still not letting it go through. This is, it's not surprising, but it's still so disappointing and infuriating. You feel me? This is the Republicans once again just being forced to go mask off in the open and say, fuck the poor. And we know that this is the case, but I'm hoping that more people, especially in Missouri, realize that the Republicans, when it comes down to brass tacks, are not going to have their back. They are going to continue to do what's best for their donors, not the voters. And that's really just the capstone, the unfortunate and sad and depressing cherry on top of these 7 infuriating and ridiculous news stories from this week that I didn't cover because there was a lot of stuff to cover this week. Isn't that just really unfortunate and really telling that I had basically another week's worth of stories theoretically to do on top of uploading every day for a week? That's the state of the world. And apparently Ottawa, which, maybe this should be a thing that gets addressed, but these are all very real problems that could be prevented and could be addressed, but we're not. And that's what's bothering me today.